Alright, so small progress report of my modding stuff for making maps. So I've made a few things. I've created new functionality to actually select objects and change their type. You can now create a new empty of any type you want. You got yourself a plain axis, for example. You can set it to, we got the Enki menu where you got item tool view, and here I added a menu for Magicka, Magicka properties. And type none is basically a default, empty, like any other Blender empty, and you can use it for whatever but it will be whatever you want, but it will be ignored by the exporter. Or you can change it to be a locator, and locators will by default display their empty axis shape and will display the name so that you can locate them easily. And you can change the radius, which I don't really know what the game uses the radius for, but it's a property that exists, so there it is. You can edit it. You can also make triggers, and triggers will be represented as a cube, right? Because that's the only shape that triggers support in Magicka, actually. You can scale the map, right? Obviously I got this wrong. Let me go back to medium point. So you can scale them however you want and make triggers with any dimensions you want, right? And rotate them around in any way, but it has to be a rectangular sort of shape. It has to be a cuboid, basically. It has to be this kind of shape. You cannot make a sphere or any cylindrical shapes or anything like that. If you want to make something more complex, I think you can have multiple triggers with the same name and they will all act together. So not sure if that works, but judging by the way that I've seen the code behaves, it should work, right? Technically the trigger is located at a bottom corner, right? Like it's placed at one of the corners, not of this cube, but of a cube that has the length that goes from the middle to one of the edges, right? So it would be like a cube going like this. So I modified that in the exporter so that you can actually get your triggers to work nicely with the way you set them up in Blender, right? And right here we got this empty trigger right here, which in-game is going to be playing a sound when you enter the trigger. So I just made it like this to demonstrate and test whether it works properly or not. And the other thing that I added is water. We now have support for water, and the way the water works, you can select any surface, right? We can add a mesh, a cube, or whatever we want, and we change the type from geometry to collision, water, on lava, although lava is not fully supported yet. I didn't really make the exporter side, but the packer is working, so we could technically get that working in no time. We select geometry will be regular level geometry. If we pick collision, it's going to be a collision mesh. And if we pick water, it's going to be water. And the water has properties which determine if you can drown entities in it, or if it's freezable, or if it auto freezes. So each of these means something. Basically, can drown entities means that if entities that touch water will drown. Pretty self-explanatory. The point about this one comes when you think about levels like Ice Hockey Rim, where you got water that you can touch and it's extremely shallow, but you don't die when you enter contact with that water, right? So that's what this property is for, making shallow water that you can walk on top of, but it still gets you wet, right? The freezable property determines if the player can freeze the liquid with their magic when using the freezing spells, and the auto freeze determines if the environment is cold and the water automatically freezes. Like when you're in the battle going to get Warlord can in the campaign, that the place is frozen and the water freezes automatically, right? So those are what these properties are. And the way that the water freezing works in Magicka goes by patches that looks like square patches. If you have ever looked at it, in Magicka 2 it also works like that. So basically it's associating the data to each vertex of the surface, right? That means that you need to have a subdivided surface to place the water in there to be able to freeze it properly. If you have a large surface like this floor right here, where there's only 4 vertices on each corner, right? You would only be able to freeze this entire triangle right here, right? If you threw the water, if you threw the cold spell on top of one of these vertices, right? So basically, no matter how much you would freeze around this area, it would never freeze the water. It would only freeze it if you touch these vertices around here. So it freezes an extremely large portion of the map, and it's kind of funny, but it's not really too useful if you think about it. So you need to subdivide it in a way that it's enough for your purposes. And this right here I found is good enough for this test map. So let's go ahead and launch the map so that we can showcase what is going on. So if we go over to World's End, it's not really World's End, but you get the idea. We're still spawning that platform. So whenever I enter that collision trigger right there, which I program on the XML side to detect if a player is colliding with it, right? It will play the clock sound that sounds at the beginning of the game when you're listening to Blath in the classroom. Right? Hopefully you can hear it, it's pretty low. But basically it was just a test to make sure that the trigger is working. These collisionless walls you're seeing are just here for testing purposes, right? They are not associated to the trigger itself. It was just to make sure that I was touching the trigger actually. So yeah. Anyway, now for the water, as you can see, it can be frozen properly. And due to the size in which I made it, it may be pretty noticeable that it actually goes in kind of squares, right? When you are freezing stuff. And I'm freezing it. So yeah, it follows the diagonal, joining multiple vertices on the triangles. So yeah, there's a straight line in there. But you get the idea. Basically, if you increase the density of your vertices, it will, the density of your mesh, it will make it much more interactable, I guess we could say, because you can freeze and unfreeze with a higher level of precision, right? Right now, if I do it like that, it's a whole chunk. Right here, it's a vertex right there. So the precision is not too high in here, but like this is on par with the resolution when it comes to the density of the meshes used for water in the base game. So this is good enough for 90% of maps. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. I could showcase the out-of-reach properties and stuff, but I don't really have too much time right now to go recompiling the map. You get the idea. You'll see more stuff when I release the tools, but for now I think it's a good enough progress report. So I'm not sure how these panels right here feel to people. I hope they are good. Also, another thing I wanted to talk about is that if you make a plane axis, right, and you keep it as a none, and you change, for example, its display to a cone or whatever, right? You can go ahead and change it to a locator. If you change it back to none, it will preserve all of the settings of your previous empty display, right? So if I also go back to visibility, I think it was, or somewhere, I don't remember, viewport display name, right? So if I set it to display the name, right, and I go back to trigger, locator, none, it saves those properties, right? So it's just a weird thing. It doesn't really matter, but it's in case you want to go back and forth between different empty types, in case you change your mind and you want it to be a none, you don't lose your settings, right? It preserves them. So that's pretty cool. And the same applies to anything else. If I have a piece of geometry right here that is water and I make it geometry, I think I actually made it preserve it. Yeah, it preserves it. So basically you can always go back to whatever you had Unless you delete the object and save and reload, then that's gone, right? But um, even if I set it to geometry, right? If I save, make a new file, and then reopen, I think it preserves it, right? So if we open map 3, it's geometry, we go back to water. Yeah, it preserves the settings like that. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I had programmed it like that or not, because I know that I did it for the empties, but I didn't remember if I also did it for the water. So yeah, that's a little quirk of this add-on, I guess. It's interesting. I suppose it might add a little bit of binary bloat to the blend file over time if you end up changing a surface too many times between being a water or a regular mesh, but like it's just 3 Boolean values. I don't know. You tell me what you think about it. For now, it's just a feature of the add-on that may get changed in the future. So the next plans that I've got, it would be implementing lava and actually fixing some problems I've got with my normal transforms for the vertex normals, which I think may be causing some problems with crashing when you wrongly unwrap something. So we'll see where that leads us. It's gonna take some time.